These four men might well be the first to feel the sting of Miller if he comes up, because he's certainly into his rhythm a little bit farther down, which is more than these four seem to be. They're now onto the climb of the Col de Granon. Miller is on the turns a little bit further back, having left Briançon. This is where the climb starts now, when they make this left turn. The white board on the right of the picture there, which you couldn't quite see, said 14 kilometres to the top of the mountain. Perhaps this is, well, the riders didn't see it either. Undoubtedly the hardest Tour de France for years and years. And this, the first real day in the Alps, with an horrendous day to come again tomorrow, so we can understand if the big riders are not exercising their legs too much just yet. And I pause there because news coming in direct from the course that in fact Miller is 15 seconds ahead of the group containing Greg LeMond and Zimmermann of Switzerland. I can see ahead now 6 miles still to climb to the finishing line. It's a climb where Robert Miller could gain enough time to be in yellow tonight. It's a climb also where, and let's not even think about it, Miller could have made a mistake and gone too early. Zimmermann keeps his rhythm. LeMond keeps nicely tucked inside him and measures his effort too. Let's hope that the cameras will take us up to Miller shortly. Ahead of these riders, still Chozaz, and behind Chozaz, we still have that small chasing group containing Motte, Dominique Gard, and Selmas Fuerte and Samuel Cabrera. None of those riders are affecting the course of this Tour de France. Miller, Zimmermann, and LeMond here on the right. They are the three men now, and barring accident, surely one of them will be the winner of this year's Tour de France. LeMond must be, again, full of mixed feelings. He knows that his teammate and rival Bernard Hinault has dropped back at long last. He's broken the elastic of that great Frenchman, the Frenchman seemingly falling out of this year's Tour de France. And just as he gets safely into the yellow jersey, it's Miller who puts in his bid. Well, Greg LeMond, Paul, was right when he said on Channel 4 the other day, this tour wasn't finished, wasn't it?
Well, that's right. This is the tour for the last few years when nobody can, even this morning, nobody could say, well, Greg LeMond's going to take the jersey, or Robert Miller, or even Zimmermann. Nobody knew. And this is one of the most fascinating tours, really, because could be for the first time we're going to have an Englishman winning the Tour de France. That's why it's such a passionate event.
Well, these people, having paid up to £2 each to come up what is indeed a public highway, you can see the sort of money that the French government has taken today on the Col de Granon. These are the chasers on the mountain behind Chozaz. The water, the perspiration running off the face there of Fuerte. Well, Chozaz has now gone inside the last 5 kilometres to the summit, so he's 3 miles from the top. These riders are over a mile behind, lower down the climb. This is Zimmermann. And this looks to me as though it's a chasing group. Where is Charlie Motte? Oh, he's in front, hidden by the big frame there of Dominique Gard. 4 riders riding in 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th places on the mountain. Lower down the slope too. Oh, and it looked to me as though Greg LeMond almost touched the back wheel of Zimmermann. That's just what he doesn't want to do now, fall on this climb.
Well, it looks here as if Greg is really suffering actually today with Zimmermann, because he hasn't tried to come up to the front and take any of the pacing at all. And either he's playing a waiting game, waiting till the last 2 or 3 kilometres before attacking Zimmermann, or he's just in a bad day today and suffering up this climb. But you can just see the cars in front there. That might be where Robert Miller is.
Well, there's absolutely no indication from even the course director at the moment as to the whereabouts of Miller. That was a very quick glimpse there of Chozaz still out in the lead, inside the last 3 miles to the top. And that's Cabrera, number 73. He looks over his shoulder. He sees the riders coming up towards him. He could well be leading his little group of 4. Fuente, Dominique Gard, Motte might well now be behind. Lower down the slopes, the sponge not preferred by Greg LeMond. This is an absolute brute of a climb. There's hardly any respite in it now, all the way to the summit. And the relentless climb now by Zimmermann coming up towards, I think this is Dominique Gard here, number 23, an indication that Robert Miller is indeed behind these riders, so the course direction has been giving us some false information here, and that is a tragedy. Because we were under the impression that Miller had gone forward, and in fact he's riding behind by a few seconds behind the relentless pursuit here of Zimmermann, and that is why LeMond has not offered any additional help here, because Zimmermann has been pulling Greg LeMond to a clear lead in the Tour de France. Well, we are as disappointed here as you can imagine, because we were under the impression that Robert Miller had gone forward from that shot we had in the valley, and in fact he was going backwards from this leading group, and Zimmermann is the rider who has been causing the trouble. He's come right up this climb now onto the back wheels of Charlie Motte and Silmas Fuerte, the only rider still in front of them, Samuel Cabrera, and ahead of him Edouard Chauzac. Well, Paul, that is absolutely amazing. What has happened to Miller?
Well, I'm not really sure, because at one time Robert was with this group, and he must have had some difficulty of some kind, but he's not very far behind, I don't think.
Well, there's still a couple of miles to go of this climb as Zimmermann does all the pace making. Charlie Motte's had enough here, so too has Anselmo Fuerte. They're getting onto the wheels here of a Swiss Express, and LeMond is hanging on there. But what a great feeling for the American rider now. Eliminating Hinault first on the climb of the Izoard, and now letting Zimmermann eliminate Robert Miller, at least today. And this is Cabrera, a little bit higher up the slopes. You can see just how high we really have climbed now into the Alps. The sun's gone in for the moment, and it's getting quite chilly.
Well, for the moment, Robert can't be very far behind, because it's in between the group of Greg LeMond and Bernard Hinault, who is timed at 2 minutes behind Greg LeMond. And as we've seen Robert do on other mountaintop finishes, he could accelerate towards the top and come back quite easily to catch Greg.
Well, there we have Cabrera coming up behind one of the official cars there, and you can see how the road is blocked and the rider could well be hampered. Zimmermann still in the lead here, pulling along Greg LeMond. Motte still hanging on at the back, along with Fuente. And the twists and turns of the Col du Granon is playing a decisive part in the Tour de France this year. Hinault starting the day 34 seconds in front. He's now riding 2 minutes behind, at least, Greg LeMond. This is Chauzac, the little man who went away and has stayed away over the mountain, now being chased all the way to the finishing line by Samuel Cabrera. Then the next group on the road, Greg LeMond, Charlie Motte at the back, and Zimmermann in that red jersey. And there is a certain fine for Charlie Motte. You're not allowed to touch the riders, and certainly not when they are challenging for the top positions in the Tour de France. Motte will be fined as much as 10 or 12 pounds for that, and the same will apply to LeMond if anybody touches him. They will also be penalised time. There are 2 distinct fines for being pushed in the mountains, one for soliciting the push and one for getting it anyway, even if you don't ask for it. And they are now 3 miles from the top, still to climb, 5 more kilometres to Greg LeMond and for Zimmermann of Switzerland. Zimmermann having led all the way up the Col du Granon, and to his credit, he's never looked at all to LeMond to help out. Cabrera sets the pace in second place, and not too far behind him now. Indeed, only by a handful of seconds are Zimmermann and Greg LeMond. Here they are. At any minute now, as they go round the bend, they might well see the following cars behind that Spanish rider in second place. Chozas, I think, has flown. He's going to win today, unless he has bad luck in the next few miles. The flag flying there for Pedro Delgado, the rider who won the stage at Po to move right up into the overall classification. He was fifth at the start today, but I think losing even that position this afternoon. And the crowd straining their necks here, expecting to see the yellow jersey of Bernard Hinault. They're going to have quite a shock when they see the multicoloured jersey there of his teammate, Greg LeMond.
Greg's still quite content to sit here because Greg's probably, like Robert Miller, been to see this climb earlier on in the year, and he knows that if he can hang on to Zimmermann, who's extremely good climber for the next 2 kilometres, the last 2 kilometres of this climb are a little bit easier, and Zimmermann will have a great deal of difficulty getting rid of Greg.
Well, for well over 5 hours now, these riders have been slogging away at the bike for yet another day in some of the highest alpine roads around. And what a change in pace it's given us again in the Tour de France. Chozas, over 20 minutes down this morning, looks set to win the stage, and with it quite a jump up the overall classification, but not high enough to take that leader's yellow jersey. That's going to go almost certainly now to Greg LeMond here, number 7. He's climbing the mountain towards the first ever yellow jersey for an American rider. And no thank you, sir, don't push me, don't touch me. If I'm going to win this race, I'm going to win it as clean as possible. He said all along he will win the Tour de France, but he certainly had a fright in the Pyrenees when Bernard Hinault shot off on his own and took a lead of 5 minutes. LeMond did well to reduce that when he won the stage the next day, also in the Pyrenees, on Super Bagnères. And now he's waiting patiently as we've come along through the heat of the Midi of France, down to Carcassonne. He's waiting for the chance to come back on the first climbs of the Alps. Another terrible day to come tomorrow. And there they are, they're bringing back Cabrera. The relentless chase by the Swiss Zimmermann is paying dividends today for Greg LeMond as well. The adrenaline must be surging through the veins here of Zimmermann. He's climbed steadily and he's pulled back everybody ahead of him now, except 2 riders at the moment. Chozas in front and LeMond in second place. And already we think LeMond has put over 2 minutes into Dominique Gard and Charlie Motte. And possibly to Miller, because we think Miller has actually caught up with Motte on the lower slopes of the climb. Well, 2 minutes is an enormous gap.
It's a lot to pull back, and as we see the 2 riders here coming to the 4 kilometres to go sign, to pull back 2 minutes on these riders in the last 4 kilometres is going to be very, very difficult for Robert. If he pulls out the best performance of his life, he can possibly expect to pull back a minute on these 2, because they're riding very, very steadily. They've got a good rhythm going, and they don't seem to be very, very worried about what's going on behind. They don't seem to be really very worried about what's going on in front, because Cabrera, because Chozas is nearly 10 minutes ahead, and these 2 riders know they're not going to dispute the stage win today. All they're worried about is getting Bernard Hinault as far behind as possible.
And regrettably, Robert Miller too, it seems, because they certainly got rid of him today. And they come up on the shoulder of Cabrera. He takes one look over his shoulder there. What does he think when he sees it? It's the 2 most important men in the Tour de France who are going by him. And both riders take a glance across to the left, because this mountain twists and turns so much that the actual climb is now immediately below them on the left shoulder. Cabrera raises the pace just enough to slip into their slipstream. Still a chance yet. He can steal something in the sprint if it comes to it. The other 2 don't even want to know about Cabrera nor his whereabouts. They're making inroads now into the final miles of this year's Tour de France. The 2 greatest prizes await them, first and second overall in the race. Well, Paul, all credit must go to Zimmermann today. He really has been a tremendous rider climbing up here.
Well, everybody's been waiting for him to put in a performance like this in the Tour de France, because apart from being in the groups in the Pyrenees, he never really contributed a lot to them, leaving all the work to Robert Miller. And today Zimmermann has taken the race into his own hands. He's not even worried about getting rid of Le Mans today. All he wants to do is move a little bit further away from Bernard Hinault, and maybe he's thinking about himself launching an attack on Greg LeMond tomorrow.
Well, while we watch the two top riders in the Tour de France now, if Robert Miller can stay clear of Hinault further down the mountain, we could still see Robert Miller in third place overall. So let's put this all back in perspective. Robert Miller is still going to occupy the highest position ever by a British rider at this stage of the event. And there is Bernard Hinault now climbing with just one man, and I'm not too sure indeed, but I think it's Eddie Shapers who's climbing with him, and that's an indication of Hinault having a lot of trouble, because you would expect Eddie Shapers, Paul, not to be alongside a man like Hinault.
Well, Eddie Shapers has been known to he's been known to climb reasonably well, but he shouldn't really be able to accompany Hinault in the climbs here today. And as he comes to 4 kilometres to go, Bernard Hinault must be round about 2 minutes behind Greg LeMond as well, so he's probably round about ready to catch up Robert Miller.
Well, are we going to see Robert Miller in distress shortly, because Hinault is now inside 4 kilometres to go, which means with the leaders 2 kilometres ahead on the road, Robert Miller must be very close now to being caught by these two men. This is Stefan Brooks here, and he certainly has risen to the occasion this year, having won the Amstel Gold Classic and the Tour of Luxembourg. He's beginning to fulfill the promise that many thought and felt in him. Hinault coming up with Shapers now. Brooks going backwards and feeling the pressure of the day.
It's very, very hard on a mountain climb like this when you've been in a group in front, and to be caught by somebody. It's very, very difficult to try and latch onto the back of this group. And we've noticed before that Cabrera managed to do it, but he's a fantastic climber. He's a Colombian. He's a climbing specialist. And you notice here how Stephen Rooks is having a great deal of difficulty trying to stay on Hinault's wheel now.
And here we now have shows as at last we see the man who has spread eagle the Tour de France today, but will not affect the overall finishing result. Not at the moment anyway. Eduardo Chozes of Spain comes to the summit. He led over the top of the Col d'Izoard by over 10 minutes, and he's coming up now between the barriers to win this stage of the Tour de France, one of the most memorable again in this year's event. Almost 6 hours in the saddle, the clock poised there to count down the seconds that will distinguish the positions of the overall leaders when they cross this line today. Chozes coming home. He just has to hold his rhythm a little bit longer. He shakes his head there. He puts his arms in the air. An average speed over the mountains today of 20 miles an hour. That's all. But my goodness me, you try and do that. Chozes is home, and he now has the right to hold his head down. His back will ache. His arms will ache. He's the winner of this memorable stage in the Tour de France, with the leaders of this race still to finish. And Bernard Hinault now coming towards the end of the climb, but still ahead of him is indeed Greg LeMond and Urs Zimmermann. LeMond has the company here, still Eddie Shapers, number 19. And Dominique Gard, who was ahead at the start of this climb, but he's fallen back now. These are the riders ahead, and it looks too as though Samuel Cabrera is paying the price, because this wonderful climb by the Swiss rider Urs Zimmermann is taking LeMond clear and ahead to further gains in this Tour de France. What a tremendous ride by the Swiss rider. He's taking LeMond so far ahead now that it's going to be a great day in the Alps tomorrow, but it's going to be between two men, I think. Zimmermann is going to soon have to decide when he will attack Greg LeMond if he wants to wear the yellow jersey.
There's Zimmermann just looking back, because he's just put a little attack there. He got rid of Cabrera, and he was trying, I think, to get rid of Greg LeMond, but Greg's sitting in there very comfortably, and although Zimmermann's put in quite a reasonable attack, he's just not managed to get rid of Greg LeMond, who's really very, very strong this year.
And still climbing and hopefully still inching forward to LeMond is Bernard Hinault. But at 2 kilometres to go now, his time is going out. He's lost 4 more seconds there. He's just a shade over 2 3/4 minutes behind those men in front of him. So there's no doubt now that Bernard Hinault, the man who's won the Tour de France on 5 occasions, finished second in it once, is meeting his match in the shape of two younger men. On the right, Zimmermann, and the American Greg LeMond. And this enormous crowd has waited to clap and cheer the leading riders up the Col de Granon. There is the kite, suitably with a blue sky behind it as a backdrop. This is the highest point in the world for these riders today. They've climbed from the bottom in Briançon. The man who's dragged Greg LeMond to that yellow jersey undoubtedly is Zimmermann. And we still feel, you know, that Robert Miller is just ahead of Bernard Hinault. We hope we're right. We haven't seen hide and hair of Robert all the way up this climb. He's been having a private battle with himself and the mountain, knowing that Greg LeMond has gone clear, and he may well know that Greg LeMond has gone away to the yellow jersey, and with it, the winner's finest colour in the Tour de France. Because I think Robert Miller is not going to do so well now. He'll concentrate on leading the King of the Mountains competition and assuring himself of a place on the podium in Paris. And I still feel that Miller will be in third place by the end of the night. Looking round the corner now, well, there are cars ahead, and they can't be Greg LeMond and Zimmermann, because they have a lead, we know, of over 2 3/4 minutes. So surely it's got to be LeMond that's chasing these two riders up the mountain. Miller, rather, who's chasing these two riders up the mountain. This is LeMond and Zimmermann. They're still going clear. One rider already in. He's had a wash, he's combed his hair. He's watching the devastation behind on the Col de Granon. Josez is sitting down now at the finishing line. Second place will be taken by one of these two riders. Zimmermann allows himself the luxury at last of a glance over his shoulder. He won't see the man who wears number 1, Bernard Hinault, but who is that lone rider ahead? We believe that Robert Miller is still in front of Bernard Hinault, although we've never seen him. Scapers following Hinault, the crowd are still cheering. A great rider, because Hinault has made this Tour de France the wide open race it has become by his marvellous attacking riding in the Pyrenees. Now we're in the Alps, and these two are the new stars of the Tour de France. All the way up to climb, a final squirt on the back of Greg LeMond. Zimmermann responds to the cheers 500 metres from the summit of the Col de Granon. Will Greg LeMond allow Zimmermann the place he deserves on the stage today? And that's second, because LeMond has not helped Zimmermann at all up the climb, either by choice or by the fact he simply couldn't. Generous applause to Greg LeMond, not quite as exciting as it would be if this was Bernard Hinault coming to the summit in the top of the French Alps. They're seeing the new generation now in this year's Tour de France, the English speakers and the non-French riders triumphing. Zimmermann still setting the pace. Well, Paul, will LeMond let Zimmermann take second place?
Well, it's very difficult to know what's going through Greg's mind at the moment. He might try to outsprint Zimmermann just for psychological reasons for the next few days. Zimmermann deserves here but look at Cabrera making a comeback here. He's only about 20-30 yards behind these two. He might just surprise them and come past them to clinch second place. I don't think they'll be expecting this, because they've not looked behind themselves for quite a while, and Cabrera just could surprise the both of them.
Well, Cabrera here is digging deep into his reserves. It's amazing how you find something down in the depths of your body when you know the top is round the corner. Cabrera comes right back onto the wheel of LeMond. Now let's see what he does. He'll have to go immediately, because they'll sense him being there shortly. And neither Zimmermann or LeMond will allow him to take them if they know he is there. The face of now, Zimmermann, he's done a wonderful ride. He looks for the gears now, and he finds a hard one that makes all our legs ache as he kicks sharply. But look at the gap now, over 6 minutes since Joseph finished. LeMond looking over the shoulder of Zimmermann, and Cabrera has lost him. He's gone out. Who is first round the corner? Still Zimmermann. Greg LeMond might well be playing the gentleman here, and he is. He allows Zimmermann second place. 6:26 behind Joseph as he comes over the line. Cabrera will get fourth place on the day. There is no doubt now that Greg LeMond will take the yellow jersey for the first time in his career, and he'll take it from this man's shoulders, his friend and teammate Bernard Hinault. This looks like Stefan Rux is still on the road. It might well, in fact, be Pedro Delgado. It is Delgado, so this rider is in front, and we've seen nothing of Delgado all day. Delgado is in front of Bernard Hinault. Where is Robert Miller? We all ask that question now. So with Le Monde home and in yellow, Delgado is going to be the fifth man to finish. The rider who took the leader's jersey of Robert Miller in the Tour of Spain 2 years ago comes in 7 minutes and 22 seconds behind Chozaz. Now we have here Bernard Hinault. Is that Robert Miller just in front? Well, we're looking for that polka dot jersey of Miller, the king of the mountains so far in this Tour de France. What a sort out this has been on the Col de Granon. The riders saving again nothing of their strength for tomorrow. And tomorrow is such a hard day. The Col de Galibier, the highest climb in the mountains. Miller it is! That is Robert Miller. He's still in this race. He's still ahead of Hinault. Miller has had one of those climbs in the Tour every rider wants to forget. He's been shed by Le Monde and shed by Zimmermann at the lower slopes of the climb. We never saw that. And now Miller is trying to conserve every second on the climb. Well, it looks as though Hinault has come back here. So for the time being at least, Robert Miller is not going to climb into the top three in this race because Bernard Hinault himself might well retain third place. It will all depend on the time gaps and whether Delgado can be the intruder. And still the riders just ahead of the field come home. Andy Hampson there, number 5. And these riders are the remnants of a group that has been absolutely shattered by the fabulous riding of Zimmermann and Le Monde. 8 minutes 52 down here. And here comes the deposed yellow jersey in the Tour de France. Bernard Hinault is not going to keep his lead, and alongside him there is Robert Miller, who matches him wheel for wheel. I think Miller now will be still 4th in the Tour de France. And there, the yellow jersey of Greg LeMond, the first time an American has worn the leader's yellow jersey, and Greg LeMond has done what he always said he would do, lead this year's Tour de France. And to Robert Miller, I think he'll stay 4th in the Tour de France. One thing is now for certain, he will stay top in the King of the Mountains competition. So Robert Miller lives to fight another day in the Alps tomorrow. And there is the overall classification. A change indeed. Greg LeMond is now in the lead. Zimmermann 2 minutes 24 seconds behind. Hinault falls to 3rd place, and Robert Miller retains 4th place overall.